Every time you avoid something that scares you, your brain is watching. And the dangerous part is, it learns from it. You think you're protecting yourself by delaying the conversation, avoiding the opportunity, or staying inside your comfort zone. But you're not escaping fear, you're training it. Because every time you avoid something, you feel temporary relief, and your brain interprets that relief as proof. Good decision. That kept us safe. So the next time fear shows up, your brain reacts even faster. What once made you slightly uncomfortable now feels overwhelming. And slowly, without realizing it, your world starts getting smaller. That's how anxiety grows. Not in one dramatic moment, but through repetition. Avoidance feels safe in the moment, but over time, it teaches your brain that fear should control your life. And the reason this happens goes deeper than most people think. Because fear is not a flaw in your brain, it's a survival system. Your brain was designed to keep you alive, not comfortable, not confident, and alive. That's why certain fears feel automatic. Fear of heights, fear of fire, fear of deep water. You don't have to learn those fears. Your brain reacts instantly because for most of human history, those things could kill you. And here's the important part. Your brain reacts before logic even has a chance to speak. That's why your heart starts racing before you can calm yourself down. That's why your body feels tense before anything bad even happens. But in modern life, your brain uses that exact same survival system for things that aren't actually life-threatening. Starting something new, speaking in front of people, being judged, failing, not knowing what's going to happen next. To your conscious mind, these situations may seem harmless, but to your brain, uncertainty feels like danger. And that's why anxiety can feel so real even when there's no actual threat in front of you. Your survival system is reacting to emotional risk the same way it once reacted to physical danger. In other words, anxiety is often just an ancient survival mechanism trying to operate in a modern world. And this is where the real problem begins. Not fear itself, but avoidance. Because every time fear appears, your brain gives you two options: face it or escape it. And most of the time, escaping feels better in the moment. You avoid the difficult conversation. You delay the opportunity. You stay quiet instead of speaking up. You tell yourself, I'll do it later when I feel more ready. And instantly, you feel relief. But that relief comes with a hidden cost, because your brain is constantly learning from your behavior. So when you avoid something and immediately feel safer, your brain records that pattern: fear, avoid, relief. And then it creates a conclusion: avoidance keeps me safe. The dangerous part is that your brain doesn't stop there. Over time, it starts labeling more and more situations as threats. Soon, things that once felt simple begin to feel overwhelming. Sending a message, starting a project, meeting new people, taking risks, and little by little, your world starts shrinking. Not because you're incapable, not because you're weak, but because your brain has been trained to retreat whenever discomfort appears. That's why people don't become weaker because of failure. They become weaker because they keep running from the things that could make them stronger. So, if avoidance trains fear, then how do you reverse it? Your brain changes the same way it learned fear in the first place, through experience. Think about someone learning how to swim. The first time they step into deep water, their body immediately reacts. Their heart races, their muscles tighten, their brain screams, "This is dangerous." Now imagine they panic and instantly climb back out of the pool. What happens? Their brain learns, "Good choice, we escaped danger." So the next time they enter the water, the fear feels even stronger. But if they stay in the water just a little longer, something different happens. They realize they can still breathe. They learn how to float. Their body slowly calms down, and little by little, the brain starts updating its belief. I'm not dying. This is uncomfortable, but manageable. That's how fear weakens. Not because the situation changed, but because the brain rewired itself through repetition and experience. And this is the part most people misunderstand about confidence. Confidence does not come before action. Nobody feels fully ready in the beginning. Confidence is created after the action. Every time you face something instead of escaping it, your brain collects new evidence. Evidence that says, I can handle this. I survived this. maybe this isn't as dangerous as I thought. And over time, that's what transforms fear into confidence. And this is why the solution is usually much smaller than people expect. Most people think they need a huge breakthrough to change their life. They think they need massive motivation, extreme discipline, or some dramatic transformation overnight. But your brain doesn't change through giant moments. It changes through small, repeated actions. If studying for an hour feels overwhelming, don't study for an hour. Study for 5 minutes. If starting the work feels impossible, don't force yourself to finish everything. Just open the laptop. Just begin. If talking to people feels scary, don't try to become confident instantly. Just say one sentence. Because small actions may seem insignificant, but psychologically, they are incredibly powerful. Every tiny action interrupts the fear loop. Instead of teaching your brain, we escape discomfort. You start teaching it. We can handle discomfort, and that changes everything. The goal is not to make fear disappear immediately. The goal is to stop reinforcing it. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. A small action repeated every day rewires the brain far more effectively than one big moment of motivation that never lasts. And over time, those tiny wins start building something bigger. Momentum, trust in yourself, evidence that you can act even when fear is present. That's how people slowly become stronger, not through one massive leap, but through small, controlled victories repeated again and again. And when anxiety hits, most people try to fight it immediately. They try to force themselves to calm down. But the truth is, your body is already in survival mode at that point. So instead of fighting the feeling, the first step is to calm the nervous system. Start with your breathing. Slow inhale and an even slower exhale. Because when your exhale becomes longer than your inhale, your brain starts receiving a different signal. The danger is over. We're safe. And sometimes that small change alone can reduce the intensity of anxiety. The next thing you can do is stop identifying yourself with the emotion. Instead of saying, I'm anxious, say, this is anxiety. That may sound small, but psychologically it creates distance because now you're no longer becoming the emotion. You're observing it. And when you observe something, you regain control over it. You begin to realize that anxiety is not your identity. It's just a temporary response moving through your mind and body. The more awareness you build, the less power fear has over you, because emotions become dangerous when they control you unconsciously. But once you can recognize them clearly, they start losing their grip. And this is also why motivation alone is never enough, because motivation is emotional, and emotions change constantly. Some days you feel inspired, some days you feel tired. Some days your mind is full of doubt, fear, or overthinking. If your actions depend only on motivation, your progress will always be unstable. That's why discipline matters more. Not extreme discipline. Not waking up at 4 a.m. and forcing yourself to suffer every day. Real self-discipline is much simpler than that. It's keeping small promises to yourself consistently. Doing the workout even when you don't feel like it. Starting the task even when your mood says no. Showing up, even imperfectly. Because discipline creates predictability, and predictability calms the brain. When your brain knows this is what we do every day, there's less uncertainty, less internal chaos, less mental resistance. You stop negotiating with yourself constantly, and over time, that consistency builds trust. You begin seeing yourself as someone who follows through instead of someone who always retreats when things get uncomfortable. That's what real confidence is built on. Not motivation, but evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself even when emotions change. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to suppress fear completely. They try to ignore it, hide it, pretend it doesn't exist. But fear usually becomes stronger when you refuse to understand it. Real emotional intelligence starts when you stop running from the feeling and start asking questions instead. What am I actually afraid of? Failure? Rejection? Embarrassment? Losing control? Being judged by other people? Because vague fear feels enormous. But once you define it clearly, it starts becoming smaller and more manageable. Then ask yourself something else. What's the worst realistic outcome? Not the dramatic disaster your anxious mind imagines. The realistic one. Maybe you fail. Maybe you feel uncomfortable. Maybe someone judges you for a moment. Okay, and then what? Can you survive that? Most of the time, the answer is yes. And that realization changes something important inside the brain, because panic grows in uncertainty, but logic creates stability. The moment you stop treating fear like a monster and start analyzing it clearly, your brain begins shifting from emotional reaction to rational thinking. And that's when fear starts losing its control over you. So, if you truly want to change your mind, your confidence, and your life, the process is actually very simple. Not easy, but simple. Every single day, do one thing that makes you slightly uncomfortable. Not something overwhelming, not something that destroys you mentally, just something small that your mind normally wants to avoid. Send the message, speak up once, start the task, walk into the situation instead of escaping it, and then repeat it tomorrow. Because real change does not happen in one motivational moment, it happens through consistency. Little by little, your brain starts collecting new experiences instead of old fears. And eventually, the things that once scared you begin to feel normal. That's how people build confidence. That's how people become mentally stronger. Not by eliminating fear completely, but by teaching the brain that fear is survivable. And this is the part you must remember. Fear does not disappear before you act. You act first. Then your brain changes afterward. That's how growth works. That's how confidence is built. And that's how you slowly take your life back from fear. And if this message connected with you, don't just listen to it and move on. Use it. Even one small action today can begin changing the way your brain responds to fear. Because the moment you stop running, the moment you start facing discomfort, even in small ways, you begin taking your power back. So if you want more videos about discipline, mindset, self-improvement, and learning how to take control of your life without the fake motivational noise, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if this video helped you see anxiety and fear differently, leave a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this right now. You never know whose life could change from finally understanding that fear is not the enemy. Avoidance is.